Hey, everybody.
All right, we're live. So for anyone that hasn't watched before, my name is Dan Krutka.
And I'm Glenn Wiebe. Glad you're here.
And if you saw the banner for this show, Glenn and I were just talking about it. He does not like the, so I made the banner without asking him, which is not what a good friend does. A good education friend does not make ads without.
Do all the legwork. That's good.
Yeah, and you know the communication back and forth. And so anyways, I went ahead and just made a banner and I pulled a picture. You always got to be careful what's available online, Glenn. So if you don't want a picture of you in wearing your blazer, you got to figure that out. I read a great article in the New York Times. I'll have to find the link just yesterday about a woman who, you know, she seems like she has some mental health problems that she has, but she started did you read this about attacking people and trying to ruin their reputation online? And she really figured out like the how the algorithms worked and picked things up on Google. And so she would put something on Pinterest that would get picked up here, and then these other websites. And then Section 230, which is the Section 230 of the 1996 Communications Act, Decency Act, protects websites if people create content. So that's like a real loophole that allows you to like post stuff, and then it's hard to ever get the people on the website to take any action on it, right? Which I've just started Sarah Roberts' book about content moderation, so I'll have more to say about that.
Well, yeah. So no, I literally read that same article, and then this afternoon I did not make that connection. But so yes, I'm trusting you not to put whatever words across my picture that you want without some sort of oversight. But we were just talking. It's a good picture. But it's me in a sport coat, and I was just talking with Dan. Like I put on a pair of khakis and a sport coat one time in 2020, as far as I can remember. This is it right here. This is about like long sleeve and a pullover. I'm good. So Dan, you can use whatever picture you want as long as the words you put over the top are nice and not like that New York Times article, because that freaked me out when I read that yesterday. Holy crap.
Yeah, it's a lot. I'm actually finding the name of the article, but hey, listen, if it makes you feel any better, I'm rocking the COVID hair. This is my hair has not been this long since my freshman year of college, and so we're all just kind of trying to make it. I'm going to find that article in just a moment, and I'm going to tell everybody the name of it because it was really an incredible read, and you see some of the problems online. And I'll share a quick personal story. Michael Milton and I have the Visions of Education podcast, and we had built up a Twitter following for years. And I was messing around one night, and I was like, "Oh, I'm going to change the birthday to our real podcast birthday, right?" Which would, of course, have make us 4 years old. And so the second I did it, it immediately shut down the account. And so I immediately filed, "Hey, this is a mistake," because it's saying I'm a minor, right? Which makes no sense. Yeah. It also means I would have created the account on my birth date. That's what it would have meant, right? So you would you would think that Twitter would be able to handle that. Anyway, here's the moral of the story that what I learned there was no one to talk to. The account, you're able to appeal. You have like 60 days to appeal. No one would respond. No one would come back, and our account was permanently deleted. All our followers and years of work to kind of build an audience was all gone just because I made that simple mistake. And there was nothing like, "Hey, are you really 4 years old?" It just went to it, changed the date, and then shut it down permanently. Yeah.
Well, see, and we are way off task. If you're listening to this, I apologize. If you're here for Google Earth, we're going to get to Google Earth, but yeah, we're random. So yes, I go like my Google account. It says, "Hey, you got like serious security issues. Go in there and make sure you fix all these things." And I get in there, it's like there's 347,000 passwords that you've been using have been compromised. Well, first of all, I'm not using them anymore. They're just saved in my account. And I don't even use these accounts. I've got about 4 or 5 I cannot get rid of. Exactly the same reason, Dan. I can't get a hold of anybody to cancel my account. These are things I don't use anymore, or literally like you can't get to where I would log into these things, but apparently a username and password is still floating out there, and I can't get a hold of an actual person to delete it or to change my username and password. So I feel your pain a little bit. It's not like you just lost all of those thousands of followers, but it's a whole nother world out there.
Well, I think we're actually hitting on a very important tech issue that's been really important to me. I've kind of been making the argument that we focus so much on using technology in schools, and that's, I mean, you can do such cool things with technology that can make a difference. Yeah. I think we need to spend more time teaching about technologies, not just like we need to have conversations with kids. And I will tell you now, I've pulled up the article. The article is by Kashmir Hill, who's an excellent follow on Twitter. She does great work. She's at the New York Times, and the article's titled "A Vast Web of Vengeance." So if you want to search it, it's A Vast Web of Vengeance. But, that would be a great article with high school students, for example, to read, though, and then to talk about what do we do? How do we create a more humane web? What should we do as individuals to make the web better? But what should we demand of companies, right? Because there should, to me, be more accountability. I think I heard Kara Swisher once use the metaphor of that a lot of these internet companies, it's like they built cities, but they never started a trash service or a fire service or police or they built no infrastructure. It's just like a city without infrastructure. And that's kind of how it is. And I'm now reading a book on content moderators, which are these poor people who are on the other end of having to look at all these videos and decide which beheading should come offline, which, oh my gosh, Yeah. So, yeah. Okay, so on these episodes, we're probably not going to talk that much off base about tech, but maybe sometimes we will. I think these kind of contemporary topical tech things are really of interest to, I think, me at least, and hopefully other people.
Well, I have a tagline on my HistoryTech WordPress page, my HistoryTech blog post page. It's like history, technology, and probably some other stuff. I mean, I'm easily distracted by squirrels, so we have trust us. We have an agenda. We have stuff we're going to talk about, but we're easily distracted, and so
But it's
sport code. Now we're everywhere.
It's always easy to get distracted. For example, just today, if you don't follow Dog Rates, the Dog Rates account, do you follow them on Twitter or others? So they rate dogs essentially, all the dogs get very high ratings because they're good boys and good girls, right? And today it was the best video of a dog who was watching a squirrel on TV and was just like almost in a state of panic, sitting in there. It's the best account. I think it's dog_rates. I can confirm that because they will actually send the technology. Technology can do good in the world too. They will send pictures of dogs they'll text them to you.
Oh,
you can sign up. Yeah, they will. So it's @dog_rates on Twitter, which is where I follow it. And if you're having a bad day, Glenn, and you need to pick me up, just hit that account up for 20 minutes.
Well, I've been at my house for the last 10 months. And so I have a dog, 14 years old. She's a Jack Russell. So she is the best dog in the world. I already know this, but it's good to know who's in second or third place. I'll go to this. I'll go check it out. I'll get that thing. I just don't want her to see me looking at other dogs. But she's she hates cards, playing cards, rubber bands. And I found out this week she hates flashlights. I'll send you the video of her attacking the flashlight. But okay. Google Earth.
Let's talk about Google Earth. A technology you can use in your class.
Yeah.
All right. Can I do one preface to Google Earth? So.
Yeah, I guess.
This is my preface for all tech. Before we jump into it, I always I always ask my teacher candidates and students, what are the downsides of the technology, right? Like the Google Earth is like the coolest freaking technology, right? It's amazing to use. It does such cool stuff. But I think it really is important to talk about the downsides of any technology, right? And I think a couple with Google Earth, I'll just name off the bat before we jump into all the affordances, all the things that the technology allows us to do, is two things. One is just kind of that Google didn't ask permission. You know what I mean? So like when we're putting a lot of information out, where our houses are, what our backyards look like, everyone to get away. And we kind of never had a discussion. Google started doing it, which is very Silicon Valley of them, right? Like a lot of the big tech companies, they just kind of ask for forgiveness, do stuff and ask for forgiveness. So I think that's a really good discussion to have with students. And then I think a second one would be where is on Google Earth and where is not, right? If we're using Google Earth a lot in classes, you specifically go look at the African continent and there's lots of parts that are not, and that could kind of continue to persist the myth that myths about Africa and the geography of Africa, even that persists. So I think those are a couple things I would bring up, but there's some great, really cool stuff you can do with it too.
Yeah, and when it first came out and got big, Hawaii was one of those places that just blocked it. No, you can't put Street View. Yeah, you can have the satellite, but you can't zoom in on the Street View like you can. And they started blocking. Google started blocking the faces automatically, and that got a little better. I know that one time they were literally blurring out Dick Cheney's back in 2001, right? Using the secure secret location, which is apparently quarter of a mile from the White House, in the vice president's house. But all of that was blurred out, so the whole thing we were talking about earlier with New York Times, the power of technology to interact with my private life without my permission is a little spooky. Absolutely something to talk about with your kids for sure, but it's so cool. There's so much fun stuff.
So I will say, if you do want them to take your stuff offline, there's another tech rule to learn. It's called the Streisand Effect. Do you know the Streisand Effect, Glenn?
I'm writing this down. Dogs.
Yeah,
go.
So it was Barbara Streisand request. They were doing this one site was doing photos of the coast, and she went and made a public request for them to take down the photos of her house because she wanted her privacy. You want to know what happened? Everyone found out where she lived. And so now the Streisand effect is when you bring attention to something that you don't want to give attention to. So sometimes the best thing, don't do your complaints about Google Earth having your house on it publicly. Send a private email. Make sure. So that's the Streisand effect.
And okay. Yes, I love that. I have, by the way, been in love with maps for as long as I can remember. So Google Earth, Google Maps, Google My Maps, Google Tour Builder, Google all the National Geographic Maker, Story Maps, ArcGIS stuff. Those are tools that were built just for me. I think in my heart, they thought of me. I grew up, Dan, literally with National Geographics, not just the ones that came every month, but we had boxes from my grandparents' house. And I lived to just flip through those. And, those maps that they would always have in them, you'd pull those out and it was just like, holy crap, how cool is this? And I would just sit there in trance. I am such a nerd with maps and geography. And so when I started when I started teaching and I got the chance to work with the technology and Google Earth came out, it's like, holy crap, this is awesome. How can we use it and what can we do with it? So I asked you, how long do we have today? And you said, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. I laughed inside when I'm going, like, really? Google Earth 15 minutes? You're a hater, Dan, a Google Earth, a hater. There's so much stuff that you can do with it. And Dan's going to pull up some stuff. I posted some things out there. There's the Google Earth, the essdk.me/Google Earth. Go here. I quickly just threw some stuff up that I use with teachers when I work with teachers and kids. Just like I think it's called nine ways Google Earth can save your bacon. It's just and attached to it is a whole tutorial of how to create Google Earth projects and tours. So I'm going to share my screen, and Dan, hopefully no problems. We're going to walk through some of the things that you can do with Google Earth, and just give you just an overview. And yes, we are going to try to keep it to 15 or 20 minutes, but we're
not on a time limit. We're okay.
We're okay. So I'm going to try. I should have plugged this in earlier. I'm going to go with 2 monitors here. The idea here is that Google Earth gives you and your kids the ability to do a lot of really cool stuff. One of the coolest things that I really like is the idea of creating what they call projects. I call them tours. So we can talk about this idea of Google Earth or Google Lit Trips. Now, there was and I thought I could remember his name. GoogleLitTrips.org. If you just type that in, Dan, and put that banner across there, earth.google.com is where you can find. And tell me, you're seeing my screen with the Google Earth, right, Dan? Yes. Oh, there we go. Awesome.
There we go. Yeah. And what was the name? What was the name of the site you mentioned?
Google Lit Trips, like Google LIT Trips. I'm going to say org.com. It's in that handout that Dan posted up there earlier. The 9 ways that Google Earth can save your bacon. Google Lit Trips. Think about the idea of fiction or nonfiction books that now kids can start to see the places where these events take place. Yes, that's it. So the idea of when we first use Google Earth or Google Maps, what's the first thing everybody does? They Google their house, right? So, that privacy thing that Barbara Streisand was concerned about. You can come by my house anytime. I don't care. But that's where we go first. But start to think of that connection between place and content. Everything we do is a geography thing. The people who teach economics are going to say, nope, everything's economics. And it's hard to disagree with any of these arguments, I guess. But to me, everything is a geography lesson because everything that happens, fiction, nonfiction, events, people, places, ideas, all of those things happen somewhere. Every lesson you teach is a geography lesson. Now, I'm a social studies guy, right? So my focus on Google Earth is using it to do social studies, but it's science, math, language arts, civics, everything is geography. And Google Lit Trips is that really cool blending of social studies content and ELA and language arts, right? So if I have a kid, I'm trying to think of a book. The only one that comes to mind, I don't know why, Johnny Tremaine, which is not necessarily a very good book, but it's one I read all the time when I was growing up. Revolutionary War, fiction. We can map out the events of Johnny Tremaine in Google Earth. So that lit trip idea. Now, I don't have a good lit trip already created, but I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you what a lit trip can look like if you are a lover of barbecue. I'll show you some other examples in just a second. But think of a book that you read, a story.
I have one.
What's the story? What's the book?
So I might even have it right here. So this is a book I use in my classes, and it's really good. So there's two here. Let me see if I can find that. So this is I don't know if you've read this book. This is a book called Never Caught by Erica Armstrong Dunbar. And there's a young adult version. We actually use it in our social studies methods classes. And one of the cool things in that book is geography is super important because Ona Judge was enslaved by the Washingtons, and the location where they were at made a big difference on her life and the life of other Black Americans, right? From the southern plantation in Virginia to primarily Free City in Philadelphia to a largely urban city in New York where there were a lot of enslaved people in houses, right? And so they experienced it, and then eventually she was free in New Hampshire. Well, I should say Never Caught. That's the title of the book. She was never actually free. She was never caught, but in New Hampshire. And so the location of all those places had a lot, but it's not even just the geographic location. It's and the laws that existed there, but oftentimes like the environment made a big difference into why slavery, succeeded in one area, not others. So there's just a very natural it's a history book, but the geography was so rich in it, and it also would help students really understand the history well.
So if you go to Google,
is that something I can?
No,
that's something I can do on Google Lit Trips. Yeah.
So you go to Google Lit Trips, and he was the guy, and I cannot remember his name. You guys are going to go to it and find it. He was a middle school social studies history teacher, and he started combining this idea of fiction, nonfiction, and geography places using Google Earth. And he coined this phrase, Google Lit Trips. Now everybody's using it. He gives those lit trips away for free. I mean, it's basically like a file you can download and open up on Google Earth. And you can make your own. Now, keep in mind, we're talking, what you see on my screen, first of all, is not Never Caught. And it's not, like a book. It's my love of barbecue. So I want to show you what it looks like, but realize that Google Lit Trips, first of all, on the website that you see on the banner, you can download, I don't even know how many, 50, 60, 80, 100 lit trips ready to use. But it also gives you instructions on how to make your own. Now I'm going to show you, we're not going to walk through it because we don't have that much time, but trust me, it's super easy. The other thing you need to understand about Google Earth is there's really 3 different versions of Google Earth, 2 that we really care about. The one that we use sometimes is the one that's on your phone or your iPad or your tablet or your Android, right? The other one is something called Google Earth Pro, which is literally a piece of software that you install onto your laptop or your desktop. The other one is what you see here, which is the web-based version. Now, they've been moving to this web-based version for a long time. Google Lit Trips got their start on the web-based or the desktop laptop version. The one that you actually have to download is a piece of software like the old days. You know, you have to like download and wait for it to load, and then you install it and you have permissions, blah, 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 right? Only until a year ago, up until a year ago, you could not do the same thing on the web-based version of Google Earth. A year ago in November, Google Earth came out and said, we're going to fix it so that you can access these sort of, they call them projects on this web-based version. So not only can I view them on Google Earth on the web, but I can also create them. So just to give you a sense, first of all, the kinds of things that you can do, and I'm going to show you a Civil War version in just a second, but this is the kind of tour that you can create. Now, Dan, you're going to be seeing barbecue. I get it, right? But start to think about the events in your book. So this is the cover, right? This is the cover of your book, and you can grab the cover and stick it up here on the cover of your tour. And then, so who doesn't love barbecue?
You know, Glenn, I'm game because one of my big theories of social studies is there's a social studies of everything, right? There's a history of barbecue. There's a geography of barbecue. There's an economics of barbecue. There's a civics of barbecue, right? And there's critical histories of barbecue, right? Like, and so, yeah, there's a great video I saw one of my our instructors at UNT shared with me too about the ways that barbecue often came from Black communities, a lot of the traditions, and indigenous communities, and it was kind of taken up, and it was whitewashed. The history was whitewashed over time to where this became like kind of a white tradition in like places like Central Texas and places like this that were adapted from. So it's a really cool, like it shows the complex histories like we have in this country and other areas, and also so I'm here. I take barbecue seriously, even though I don't eat it a ton. My wife's vegetarian, and so we don't have it a ton, but I do appreciate barbecue.
So this is a picture, just so you know, from a place called Bates City Barbecue in the Kansas City metro area. So yes, you're exactly right. So when we start talking about Google Lit Trips, now I'm going to give you some other examples in a few minutes of the kinds of tours that you can make and the kinds of things that you can do. But I want you to see how this works sort of like on the end first, and then we can like really quick show the back end. But events in a book, the geography of barbecue and how it's different in Texas, Kansas, West Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida. All of them have different ways to think about barbecue. That's the story of barbecue. Now, a Google Lit Trip is the story of that book, the characters and the place and the setting and the context, right? So yeah, it's kind of these are some of my favorite barbecue places that I can drive to and I can get to. And it's like with the COVIDs, I haven't been to these in a while, so it's very sad. And I want to go. I need a vaccine so I can eat barbecue. So that's the cover. This, by the way, you zoom into a place, right? You zoom into the place where these events happen in the book. So think of Virginia.
Can you go full screen, Glenn?
Yes. So think of the idea of the events in Never Caught. So we've got Mount Vernon in Virginia, and we've got Philadelphia in Pennsylvania, and we have New York City, and we have New Hampshire. I can zoom into these places and get a sense of that particular place. Right. This is Roy's Pit Barbecue. Every time you create a place, you also create what these little information cards. Right. So in the top, I've got a picture of some of their barbecue, and that's the place. That's a little hole in the wall barbecue. This, by the way, is the best barbecue in the world. Just so you know, if you need it's good. The sauce.
This awesome. Is it. Well, and by the, can I make a geography comment?
Absolutely.
So when you showed me that, you made me think about a possible connection, and this one's a little different but geography. I think that barbecue places oftentimes seem to be very catered around cars too, right? Like I can't think of a lot but I think the reason is because barbecue places need a lot of space. Although there is a famous barbecue place in Taylor, Texas, I know, where that's in an urban downtown space. But I wonder how common that is, because a lot of them seem to be like roadside. Drive your car up, plenty of parking. I don't know.
Some of the best ones there's some of the best barbecue I've had other than Roy's, because Anne, the owner, might be listening. Dreamland Barbecue, oh my gosh, is phenomenal. And it's just a hole in the wall, right? These three are all Kansas City metro area. And by the way, there's a rule. If a barbecue place has cloth napkins, especially white cloth napkins, that's not a barbecue place. Just saying. So this is Zarda's, and you can see in the top in the place card. These are some of the really good pictures of their food. But you'll notice again, bottom right hand corner, bottom left hand corner, I can go from one place to the next place to the next place to the next place. This is Bait City Barbecue. This is the really good place. Whenever we go anywhere, by the way, we rate barbecue places by the number of ribs it is, like how good of it, like 10 stars, 10 ribs. Roy's Pit Barbecue is like the gold standard. That's 10 ribs. This was 9.5 ribs, just so you know. Really good.
So this went straight into Street View, it seems, right? Did you set that up like that, or was that already?
Yes. So you'll notice this one does too. So you can, when you create your tours, when you create the projects, your Googled It trips or whatever, and I'll give you some other suggestions, you can have the option of like, and you notice, and I'm trying to peek around my other laptop to get this other monitor. If I go back to Roy's Pit Barbecue, it does not take me to Street View. It just takes me to the view that I set. So you, the creator of the project, of the tour, can decide what this final sort of image looks like, right? And you can embed video, audio, photographs, text, links into those place marks so that this tour becomes as rich and as deep as you want it to be.
Well, and it makes some sense too, right? If we're talking about the Own a Judge example, we're going to probably want an aerial view of a plantation, right? Like if we're trying to understand it, because they're big and large and wide and cover a big expanse. And then if we're looking at where George Washington lived in New York, we're going to just want probably a street view of where that is, if that's possible.
So you'll notice here on this left-hand side, this is the edit version. And so I can go into any of these places and change all of these little details, the text, the photographs, the place mark color. I can, there's lots of things that you can do here. But I also want you to start to notice too, when I do this down in the bottom, this is the powerful part. This is the part that I think Google gets right a lot of times, is they give a lot of support. So if I just click this little button here, I can start to get all of these little handy little videos that walk me through how to create this. Now, if Dan can put back up that essdk.me Google Earth link, that one, there's like a 10-page printed out tutorial that walks you through all these steps. But I love the fact that once you or your students get into this, I can create, I can start going through and viewing this tutorial about how to add features. And I can learn what I need to learn when I need to learn it. That's the beauty of this particular tool. So that was the barbecue place. And I'm not going to, just so you know, you can actually do official school business, whatever you want to call it. This is a Civil War battlefield tour. Now I only put 4 places on it, but this is again the back end where I can go and edit all of these different things and drag them or move them and put them in the right order or do whatever I want. I also have the ability to share this file with other people. I can share the link out with other people. So when they open it up, Google Earth pops open and plays your tour. So in this situation, it's all of the battlefields of the American Civil War, right? All 4 of them.
And so in this one, this is an image, of course, right? Like, so that was and so so you can have it pop up, not only just choose to go to the place, but show you an image and then it goes to the place. Is that?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
There are some tools that, and these are great questions. I can add features. And one of those features is a full screen slide. I can do lots of stuff here. And these are each like in order, and I can rearrange the order. I can move them in different places. And it's just a really cool way for you to tell a story using geography as that lens to do that. Now we looked at barbecue. We've been talking about your, the Washington enslaved person. He was ticked, by the way, right? It's a great book. Here is Civil War things. So you start to get the kind of things that the projects that you can create on Google Earth. And I interrupted you, but this is like, I told you I'm a geography nerd. I love this kind of stuff because it gives you and your students the ability to create and share, push and pull, push content out, but pull stuff in from kids or other users of Google Earth. And you can make it as deep and as rich as you want it to be, or as simple or as easy as you want it to be.
Well, I'm coming up with so many ideas, right off the bat, from doing, civil rights tours to, I could kind of see, like, for a lot of grades, something that, and by the way, I love authentic media. And what I mean by that is when you create something that can be used out beyond your classroom, right? Because so often students do an assignment, they hand it to the teacher looks at it, they hand it back, it ends, right? And so one of the first things that came to my mind that got me excited is having your class do an assignment where you identified what are the most important places in our community that we need to understand. So our city, whether it is, or our region, that we need to understand, having them identify, how are we going to do this? How are we going to ensure, for example, I would have a real emphasis on the places that are often not given attention by mainstream media, by tourism and other things, right? Going to neighborhoods that are often ignored. Oftentimes those are the same ones that historically have been redlined and have black and brown, large primarily citizens, and having them go in those places, do interviews with community leaders, and then post those as part of the places, right? So it's like, here's the place, here's me interviewing somebody at and I'm thinking of my city at the Martin Luther King Community Center, right? In our city, and like understanding what happens here. Why is this an important part of our community? Here's this other place, right? And so it'd be really cool. You could create a city of Denton or a Dallas Fort Worth, community. How do we know our community? And that's such an important question for social studies, right? Is who are we?
So yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing: when you look at this, you go, well, I can put a photo, I can put a YouTube video, I can put some text, I can put some links in here in the little place mark box, right? The little place card. But start to think about how to mash Google Earth up with other tools. Adobe Spark, I can record audio. Speechify, record audio. Lots of ways to record audio, and then upload that to your Google account or wherever you store your stuff, right? Then you link to that audio narration. So now not only do I have this image of me at this place in our town, but we can actually record the interview with the guy or the woman who runs that really good barbecue place or whatever. I mean, right? Start to think about mashing up all of these different tools and combining them together, again, to create this continually richer project with more and more stuff on it. And I just, sorry, I get super excited about Google Earth because, again, start to think about it. I'm a social studies guy. If you're here in your ELA, math, science, God bless you. You're doing, you got your own special kinds of ways that you can maybe use this. But you were talking about the redlining, right? I've seen teachers use Google Maps, Google Earth to create like congressional districts, and then mash up donations to different candidates from these different congressional districts. We've seen tours and projects, especially last fall, where they would map out the trips that President Biden and former President Trump took on the campaign trail. Where did they spend all their time? What states did they spend the most money in? We can make explorer routes. Lewis and Clark, I'll show you in just a couple minutes, Lewis and Clark's route to the Pacific and back to St. Louis, with stops along the way, right?
And don't forget to check out Dr. Leilani Sebzalian. If you follow our Visions of Ed podcast, one of our favorite people, has a brand new book on Lewis and Clark. And she, of course, takes a very indigenous perspective about why it's been mistaught. And so anyways, I haven't read the book yet, but I respect, Leilani gets a blind retweet. I don't know if you've read any of her work. She has a great book that was out last year that was a big award winner.
Right.
So if I'm starting to do this, where's the very beginning? Where do I start? What's the start of the process? And is it a mixture of both? Some of these are already created, like you said, a bunch of them that I can just use that are ready to go. But if I wanted to make one with my students, where's the starting point?
Well, I wouldn't even make one first. I would show them some of the things that you could do. And the cool thing is that on the web-based version of Google Earth, there's something called Voyager. So over here in this left-hand set of icons, I click what looks like the little ship's steering wheel, and you get all of these different tours that have already been created for you. And you've got a couple of different genres, categories. So if I want to click on education, and they change these all the time, by the way, and I think it's in this one where there is a Lewis and Clark version. Come on, be Lewis and Clark. There we go. So it's already created. I click it, and it goes, "Oh, you want to see the Lewis and Clark? Yeah, we're ready to go." And you notice all of the different places. Now this is professionally done, but it doesn't look substantially different than the one that I made on my barbecue tour, right? I still have the ability to go to certain places, get the 3D effect, find information about this particular group of people, and then continue to move to the next place on that trip. So if you're going to read the book that you were talking about, right, I can take my kids to these places, and they can see, as we read the book, the places that the book is talking about. Now,
Right.
The beauty of this is that there are, you start to see all of, like, right, this is just one genre, and they change them all the time. So you need to come back and keep looking. But I would start here. If I'm a teacher, whether it's social studies, math, language, art, science, whatever, I would go here because there are tons of different things in here that you can use, right, that are going to align to the content that you already are talking about in your class. The only thing is you just got to go and find it and browse through this. I love this one, especially elementary kids. I can come down here somewhere. I know there are Carmen Sandiego. Where's Carmen Sandiego games that look just like the original game that help kids start to learn about geography, learn the basics of maps, learn the basics of Google Earth, learn the basics of longitude and latitude by playing a Carmen Sandiego game. There are other quizzes and games as well. So that's where I would start.
I need to go. That's based on the old floppy disk Carmen Sandiego game, right? Oh, yes. I need to go back and look and see what I learned, because I can guarantee you that I had many a teacher that tossed us in the computer lab, and we played Carmen Sandiego and Oregon's Trail quite a bit. I know I've seen the critiques of Oregon's Trail. I need to go back and look at what I learned from Carmen Sandiego.
Well, yeah, see, that's a whole nother conversation about video games. Absolutely, that we need to add that to the list. But I've seen teachers, state history teachers, like in Kansas, 7th grade kids are going to learn Kansas history. I don't know in Texas, where you guys are at, where you learn Texas history, but I know
4th grade.
Yeah, so in 4th grade or 7th grade in Kansas, wherever, like you have $1,000, take us on a tour of Kansas. And you have to like budget, right? All of the, like, what are the best places to visit in Texas, best places to visit in Kansas, or whatever. We can do that on Google Earth. Right. Either the desktop version or this web-based version that we're looking at. We could use this as an instructional tool, right? It's not just, oh, look at these, it's kind of cool. Each of these place marks could have a prompt. So we're reading about Never Caught Chapter 1. So that pops up. We're at Mount Vernon. And in that place card are articles to read, other like perspectives on the system of slavery in the United States, for example, when it started, what happened, what was Washington's involvement in it, what was his wife's family's involvement in it. These guiding prompts could be part of that place card. So this could be...
Are you telling me that I could? Are you telling me that I could make my course calendar in Google Earth, right? So like each week, like you go to this important critical place. I actually really love that, right? So like we name a place that's really central, and we think of, because that's actually really important in education, right? It's like thinking of not just place as something we study, but place as somewhere where we learn too, right? And so like centering a course around place could be really powerful. So I'm now envisioning my course calendar. I'm gonna say, here, where's my course calendar? You click on a Google Earth tiny URL in our course, and it takes you week 1. You are in this place, and here's your readings. Dreams are coming true here. I'm going to make this happen.
Okay, so I put in the chat, and it's the easiest way I could get it to you. There's a really good book called The Republic of Nature by a guy named Mark Fiji, and it talks about how geography impacts history. Now, it talks about the United States history, but yeah, absolutely. You could do all kinds of cool stuff here. But realize that in a flipped classroom or a hybrid sort of environment that I know a lot of teachers are still in, I may not see my kids face to face, and a lot of the content that I'm sharing with my kids is going to be virtual or digital. I can make this tour, and they go back to it every time. I just add new place marks, new content, new prompts, new things I want them to read. It becomes a really flexible tool. And I mentioned this earlier, this idea of push-pull technology. And I really want you to walk away with that. In terms of Google Earth, it's a tool I can use to create content that I push out to students. But it's also a tool that I can have them create things in that I then pull back from them. So it's that both and, create and consume. My kids are both consuming content that I give them, but they're also using Google Earth to create content that they push out back to me. And that's the beauty of some of the stuff that you can do here. And it
reminds me of that. Have you seen the Taco Bell fire nachos commercial right now? Do you remember the end line, what he screams? You don't consume me, I consume you.
Wow. Pop culture reference. There we go. Yes.
Sorry, there we go.
I've never had nacho fries. I want to try, but I live in a dinky little town. I'd show you on Google Earth, but it's like 30 miles to the nearest Taco Bell. I have not tried nacho.
You know, you're not missing out. I'd stick with your barbecue places. So how about we have a bunch of banners up. How about I pull these banners up and you just walk through and tell us what we need to know about each one. And we'll kind of start unless you have a lot more. Do you have more to show us? Do you want some other stuff?
No, there's so much here that we could play with. I will point this out because it's kind of hidden. Google Earth on the web is not, this is not rocket surgery we're talking about here. You can figure this out by clicking some buttons and exploring. But one of the things that I think teachers miss, and it's not in one of these icons, it's under the hamburger menu in this top left corner. If I click that, one of my options is by default, the photos are turned off.
Okay.
So one of the things that I would encourage teachers and students to play with is this idea of having photos turned on. It's another layer. So all of a sudden, all of these things pop up. So if I'm going to study Gettysburg or the TVA project during the 1930s, I can zoom into all these different places if I have the photos turned on, and by default they're not turned on, and I can find photos that people have taken of that place. So it goes beyond just street view, which is awesome, to actual photographs that somebody has taken. And I have no idea what any of these are. Realize that, first of all, they are vetted, right? So this is not something you're like, oh my gosh, what might pop up? I would never turn that on because I don't know what Google's going to show my kids. This is all vetted. So I have no idea. This is like in Sioux City, Iowa. It's apparently a machinery tool supply place. I don't know. But if I go to Gettysburg, I'm going to get pictures from people who have been to Gettysburg and upload these photographs to Google as part of their map database. So that's the one thing that a lot of teachers don't know about Google Earth because it's just hidden back behind there.
Cool. All right. So how about I'm gonna do a run through. This is like a quiz, right? So I'm gonna pop up a link and you tell me what we need. You tell me what we need to know about. I'm gonna go around. Some of these we've already popped up, but it'll give you a chance to refresh and go back over. What do we need to know?
Okay, so this is just the website for the web-based version of Google Earth. It also gives you information about if you want to download and install the desktop version. This is the home for Google Earth.
And so do you recommend people download the desktop version?
It does some really cool. It does some really cool things that the web-based version doesn't. And one of the cool things that it does is something called historical imagery. Now I can pull this up, but we've been talking for a while and I would nerd out because I would have a whole nother piece of software to play with. So yes, I would. It's free. Why not? If you have room and permission on your laptop, you might as well, because again, the cool thing, lots of other cool things. But the thing that comes to mind is something called historical imagery. It's like you can get this on Google Maps as well in Street View. Like, here's a picture of my house in 2012. Whoa, I did a lot of upgrades. In Google Earth here, I can't get it. On the Pro version that is installed, I can get it. And there's some, and it's not just like Google Street View. I did this really fun. It's a really interesting activity about the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising in 1943, because I can go back in time, because Google has put not satellite images but aerial photographs of that place in 1936.
Wow.
And then we show 1945, and then we show 2020, and we talk about kids don't know what we're looking at, and they have to start asking questions about, why do they look different? Is it the same place? And it's just a great way to start to generate inquiry. So good question, long answer. Sorry. The answer is yes. You should download it. It's free and it's awesome.
That's great. Okay. Our next one.
I already mentioned how powerful the support system is for Google Earth and Google tools in general. So this is just a website. If you go to that, just gives you a lot of resources to think about Google Earth and how you might be able to use it.
Okay.
See, National Geographic is a no-brainer, right? It's geography. And I already talked about my love for National Geographic and the magazines that would come every month with the great maps in them. This is just a website. If you go to it, it just gives you how to use Google Earth to teach geography in math, science, language, arts, and social studies. A lot of resources, great lesson plans. And who doesn't love National Geographic? Absolutely.
I don't know anyone doesn't.
If you do, it's like you would hate puppies. I mean, come on.
I know.
Come on.
All right, what do we...
Okay, so this is 3 pages of, I mentioned 9 ways that Google Earth can save your bacon. Some of it we talked about today already, but there's other like things that you can like pull out and do with it that we didn't talk about today. So go here. It's a PDF, download it. No problem. Attached to this also, I said, are 10 pages of how to create your own Google Earth project, step-by-step printed tutorial. So you can go online and get their YouTube channel tutorials, but you can also use this hard copy.
Perfect.
Okay, so this is a great activity for elementary kids, and it may be a good like brain break with middle school, high school. I don't know your kids, but I love doing these little scavenger hunts, longitude and latitude. And this particular activity is designed for elementary kids, and we used it with some kids just a couple weeks ago, and they were just. And we did it virtually on Zoom, and they were just loving it. We were having so much fun. Basically, you give kids a problem. Like somebody stole some stuff out of the National Geographic office, and you got to go like these really important documents. You have to find out where the thieves are going. So it's Carmen Sandiego-ish. You give them longitude and latitude. They have to go out and find these places, solve the clues when you're in those places, and then figure out where to send the cops to arrest the bad guys. It's awesome.
Very cool.
And the next answers.
Well, and I was gonna. So, are the links different? This one has SDAC with a DACK, and they? Should it be with?
Yes, good call. It probably auto-corrected when I typed it in there. So go here. This gives you the stuff that you can hand out to your kids and the answers to what you hand out to your kids.
Did I get it right? Is that the correct one right there? Okay, there we go. Okay, next one.
Nope, go back
That's
one.
The answers.
Use this one. Ignore that one. Delete that one. Don't show anybody that one. That's wrong.
Okay.
Just go to the next that one. You're good. I didn't know if we would have time. I was going to make you actually do this, and then I'd give you the answers.
Well, we will have time on a different one, so maybe we come back and do this. Maybe we need a second episode.
So we did the Google trips already. I love your example of Never Caught. You know that version. Then there is a kid. Was the cover that you had was the original or the kids version?
This is the adult version. The young adult version, I don't know where that one is. It's somewhere here.
But it's an awesome book because it starts to give us, a better perspective of the founding fathers. And I have a lot of respect for the founding fathers, but we don't often tell the full story of who those people were. And this particular book talks about the people in George Washington's circle of influence, the lives that they lived. It's just a great book. But it centers on the life of Ona Judge, who's enslaved by George and Martha, and talks about it. Basically, gives you history from her perspective, which is a very different version than you often get. Yeah. Okay. Right. So this Google Lit Trip idea on this website gives you, and I don't know if I doubt if Never Caught's on there, but there's like 80, 90, 100 different grade level Google Lit Trips for books you're probably already having kids read. Why not download, steal them, use them? Absolutely. I love it. Or make it with your class, right? So if your class, if it doesn't exist, you and your class can make it and make this happen. So this has been really fun. And this is kind of what we intended. For anyone that saw the first one, we had some tech problems, worked through them. This is our second try, and we've done these kind of quick, but here's our goal. So Glenn, and correct me if I'm wrong, our goal is at 5 p.m. Central on the first Monday of every month. We're going to try to do this. And we'll do we'll probably do 30 to 45 minutes and pick, talk a little bit about tech, and then pick a specific tool to kind of get into. We're going to do some more advertising of this, so we have some people join us and we have more questions. Jeff Carpenter did bring in a question saying earlier that I was a hater. So that was early enough. I forgot to add that one in. So. I don't know Jeff, but he and I buds. Fortunately, I asked YouTube where the content moderation was for this. No one seemed to be supporting. So okay, so we will be back, but we hope you enjoyed this one, whether you're watching it live or whether you just watching it on YouTube, and we hope we can get more people joining us on Mondays at 5 p.m. Central for History Tech with Glenn Wiebe. Throw up real quick. Can you do this? Just that HistoryTech website, glennwiebe.org, takes you to HistoryTech. I've been writing there for about 15 years. There literally are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of useful blog posts. If you just go into that website, glennwiebe.org, in the search box, type in Google Earth, you'll get so much Google Earth goodness, you won't know what to do with all of it, because I'm a nerd. And if you haven't, I mean, it's an absolute must. And if you're a social studies educator, you have to subscribe to Glenn's email, his listserv. He posts great stuff and makes it easy for you to try new tech stuff in the classroom. So thank you for all your work, Glenn. And that's I've seen you doing this work for years, and that's why I wanted to keep learning from you here. Well, and I appreciate you having me. And thanks for watching, by the way. I know if you're watching this live, you're doing this after school. Go get something to drink. I don't know. If you're not watching it live, go get something to drink anyway, but because you're a teacher and you deserve it. So thanks for all you guys are doing. Yeah, and with RPD, you can drink and have barbecue, and we won't even know. So feel free to be yourself. So all right. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. See you guys a month from now.